Did you ever feel like you had those types of people growing up as you were like growing up? Besides, like obviously your dad, your mom's been ride or die since the day you were born.
Yeah.
But was there other people in your life that maybe were constantly trying to give you that confidence that George, you got potential, like you really could do something with your life? Or there, I guess you could call them hype men. You know what I mean? Like, was there people in your life that were hyping you up? That were really good mentors for you?
I'd have to say, you know, well, I know like my coaches, my high school coaches, they saw something in me, but like I remember our last game, my coach Pierce, he went through all the seniors and then he talked to me last and he was like, George, if you don't make it anywhere, you should be ashamed of yourself. And then I've always remembered that, and then I to this like, and I am ashamed of myself, and then Coach Burt, he was my favorite coach. He would always tell me, whenever he would talk about something, and I'd be like, dude, shut up. He's like, hey, it's not bragging if it's true, and he's like, he would always tell me, Wolf, you can make it far. Like, you just got to keep working. So like those two men, like I really appreciate those two guys for like seeing the potential in me, when it came to football. And then, like church, there's a lot of people that saw things in me but I just never really paid attention to it like I did now. You know, there's a lot of people who, like my Granger 8th Bishop, he saw something. Like I thinking back, he'd always think like, George, yeah, you're good. You could be a good leader, things like that. But I just never, I wasn't paying attention to those things back then like I did this last time around.
It's kind of interesting how that works, where it's like you've had a lot of really good influence in your life, your whole life, basically, right? And you had access to them. It wasn't like you had to be in a line to wait to talk to somebody.
Yeah.
It was more so you were in control of what you wanted to hear at the time, right?
Exactly.
And I think it's powerful that it came down to those 3 or 4 complete strangers that never knew you, that actually only knew you at your worst.
Yeah, exactly.
that believed in you.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a powerful principle as far as like trying to be a good leader or trying to see the potential in people. I think that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
Right. To see people as they can be rather than as they are, especially in that field.
Yeah.
But I think if we as an older generation to younger kids, if we can be mature enough to help these kids see their potential and do it in a way that's motivating to them, maybe they don't have to wait for the judge or total strangers to see themselves better than we can, right?
Yeah, because I noticed as a youth when growing up, you don't pay attention to those things, like because your mind is so focused on other things. It's always going, and then, but when you're growing up and when, I guess you could say, when stuff hits the fan, it's like then you try to look for what's really important, and just those 3 people that I didn't know, truly a blessing in my life that I'm grateful for, and I can say I could be lifelong friends with.
Yeah. So what does that do now? Like what is my favorite question to ask myself, is like, so what now? What are you doing with your second chance at life? Because you should be in prison, right?
I should
with
be
all these
sitting,
strikes that you dodged, but because of these 3 miracle workers, and plus your mom, who's always been there, you've been given another opportunity. What's George's plans on taking advantage of that now?
So one thing I turned to when I was given this opportunity or last chance was my Patriarchal Blessing. Because in my Patriarchal Blessing, it talks about being a leader to the youth and things like that. And that's why I was, when you were telling me about what this podcast was for, and I was just like, another, like, not a coincidence.
Yep.
Because I don't believe in coincidence, and it's just like, it's crazy how, the program I went to, all the things that I'm doing now is just falling into line with what my Patriarchal Blessing is saying, and just doing just that, like serving people is what I want to do, helping people who are still in addiction, get them to where they need to, giving them the resources they need, because that's and that's one thing about my Patriarchal Blessing that I always, whenever I read it, I'm just like, yeah, I'm on the right path. Every time something happens and I feel like it has something to do, like my Patriarchal Blessing is just all in line with it, you know? So that's what I'm doing now, is doing everything I can to graduate the program I'm in and just give back, you know? There's been, I've been in that lifestyle, and I know how depressing it could be. Even though you may think you're not depressed, you're depressed. You know, you're using a drug because there's something going on.
It's a deeper,
there's
underlying
there's
issues
you got to
there.
find the root of why you're using, and that's what I was able to do, and that's what I want to share with others is that if I could do it, you could do it. You know, that lifestyle is definitely not somewhere you want to be and expect happiness to come from it, because you only find misery. And yeah, so
I was thinking about you bringing up your Patriarchal Blessing. I feel like for those who don't even know what a Patriarchal Blessing is, it's basically a roadmap that we get from our Heavenly Father, right? Through divine inspiration. And the thing that I love most about the Patriarchal Blessing, if we really sit down and ponder and pray about it, it essentially gives us what our purpose in life is. Or it can play a big role in that, right? And so I feel like as a man, when we find our purpose and we act on our purpose and just fuel it, right? And we live in it, I feel like that's where we find ultimate fulfillment, at least for me. And that's what this podcast is all about, right? It's talking about things that we can find real value from. Like at the end of the day, when your head hits the pillow, it's like, if you can say, man, that was a really fulfilling day, that's a win. Like that's the ultimate happiness for me as a man, right? Like I did everything as a husband I could. I tried to provide for my family. I tried to be the best person I could be, doing the things that help me be that person. That to me is like a huge part of that equation of finding fulfillment. But I couldn't help but think about that when you were talking about your Patriarchal Blessing, because it sounds like now that you've found that, it's almost like you've realized what your purpose is now, having taken that route, and now everything that you're doing revolves around feeding that.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Yeah, and like being able to go through that program and then just seeing where it led me, like to be into the a program within that program, you know, to start to work there, and being able to, you know, when I was in the program, I was in leadership in there, and I feel like I've helped a lot of people in that program when I was doing those things, and like I couldn't be more grateful for me being able to get my Patriarchal Blessing and have that, you know, because it is a roadmap, and that's what every time I go to sleep, you know, every time I go to sleep, I always think, okay, I'm sober, you know, I did all these things, and you know, just mainly helping out my daughter, who I have full time, and being able to pick her up and have her there and see me every night instead of like once a month and things like that. That's fulfilling for me now, because when she was born, I kind of gave it to my mom and dad. My other kids were with the other grandparents, but now I can honestly go to bed with no regrets of what that day consisted of, you know. And so what
more could you ask for? You know what I mean? Like at this point, it's like it doesn't really benefit us to wish we could have done something to feel fulfilled 10 years ago. Right? It's like you really can only control the next this day coming up. So it's like, what can we do now, right? I love that. And I love that that's your focus.